Why, yes, the man with the bow and arrow is coming to San Diego. Welcome to Padres Social Hour. I'm Paul Devlin along with Bill Center, and we are coming to you live from Petco Park. And Bill, you've covered this team, been around it for more than 40 years. You amped up for another year?
I am. Spring training can't come soon enough. That's the beginning of my year. Everybody talks about New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. The beginning of my year is always opening day of spring training.
Okay, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to start with news that broke last night. Fernando Rodney signs with the Padres. A one-year deal, very friendly, $1.5 million.
Right.
Has an opportunity to make $7 million with incentives. He comes with a pretty good resume. 13 years, 236 saves, two-time All-Star. He does turn 39 in March, but the Padres hoping that he can revert back to the form that helped him record 48 saves for the Seattle Mariners in 2014.
Paul, I absolutely love incentive-driven contracts because then if a player is doing well, he makes more money and everybody wins. I love those kind of contracts. Fernando Rodney is very interesting to me for several reasons. One, pitching coach Darren Balsley has never operated with closer by committee. Only 1 year that he tried when Trevor Hoffman was hurt. It was a disaster until they brought Rod Beck. And Rodney is a type of pitcher that the more you use him, the more he seems to thrive. So I like the idea in here on incentives. Right now he's ticketed to be the closer. The better he does, the more he makes. I think it's all good.
Hey, you look at him and people are going to say, hey, he's 39 years old with a lot of mileage. But you look at the top closers in the game, in the history of the game, Mariano Rivera, 43. Trevor Hoffman, 42, pitched very effectively.
Right.
John Franco, Dennis Eckersley, they were 44. So
right.
if he's used right, it could be pretty good.
Right, and recently here, Joaquin Benoit pitched very well. He was 37, 38 when he was here. So, yeah, closers, you're only in there. It's not like you're pitching 6-7 innings. You're only in there to get that last 3 outs.
And he punctuates every save, making like Cupid
right.
and pulling back
right.
the bow.
Yeah.
And he's got a little style, a little flair. He wears his hat like a lefty, but he's a righty. But he's some personality that this team could use.
I love personality in a closer because I think a lot of closing is also psychological warfare. You don't have to, as Trevor Hoffman talked about, you got to get 3 outs before they get 3 hits. And, it's psychological warfare. You got the ball, the pressure's on the other guy. I really think that Fernando Rodney is a good fit.
Hey, we have a big show on tap for you. Nick Ennis, Director of Baseball Operations, he's going to stop by and talk about the state of the Padres. And Jesse Agler, the man who normally sits here, is going to be over there talking about his move to the radio broadcast team. And we want to remind you, Twitter fans, you have questions, fire up the Twitter. Hashtag Padres SH, capital S, capital H. We'll try to answer your questions by the end of the show, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions about Fernando Rodney and why the Padres signed him. Now let's turn to spring training. Pitchers and catchers report to Peoria on February 18th. First workout a day later. Now this team is trying to rinse away the bad taste of last year. Great expectations coming in. They revamped the roster with big league names, and everybody was excited, but they fizzled, finished with a 74-88 record. Everybody was disappointed. They're trying to cleanse it away with a new manager in Andy Green. 38 years old, second youngest in the game. This guy's very bright. Valedictorian in high school, academic All-American at the University of Kentucky. Is he the right choice at the right time for this team?
What's interesting to me is that I didn't know a lot about Andy Green when he got the job. I read a little bit that night when the press conference was coming up. His introductory press conference that he held the next day, I have never seen anybody handle himself better and talk with more passion about what he was going into than Andy Green. Now, if that carries over, I think there's a lot of brightness ahead.
I tell you, if you look into his eyes, and I saw some of the interviews, and if the eyes are the window of the soul,
right.
That soul is burning brightly.
Good point.
Okay, he's very competitive. He's a high-energy guy. But I think the first order of business that he's going to have to deal with is that clubhouse. Last year, lack of respect, lack of discipline, and really some people called it romper room. Do you think that's very important that he establishes leadership right away?
I do. I think that it's very important, but I also think that they brought in a player that's going to help him, and John Jay, who is a leader in the St. Louis Cardinals clubhouse. They traded for him. I think that Green and Jay, it wasn't a bad clubhouse last year. There were just a lot of things that went on that I thought weren't baseball related. And I think that, if you get everybody on the same page, I think that there's an opportunity here for both, for Jay and for Andy Green. And I do think it's going to be a good mix.
He's taking over a pitching staff last year, ranked 23rd out of 30 teams, 4.02 ERA. Very disappointing. Top of the rotation, you have Shields, Ross, and Cashner. After that, it's going to be like America's Got Talent audition for that 4th and 5th spot. Colin Ray, very impressive after coming up from Double and Triple A on August 11th. He went 2-2, and also Brandon Maurer comes out of the pen where he was 7-4 with a 3 ERA. Do those guys have the first shot of getting those spots?
They might have the first shot. There are a couple other guys, Drew Pomerantz. The one guy who really interests me from last year is the best. I thought the best starter they had at the start of last season was Brandon Morrow, and had immediately. They were 5-0 in his first 5 starts. He did a great job and then ran into shoulder problems. When he is healthy, he is a very good starting pitcher. Robbie Erlin's also in there, give you a left-hander. So I think they've got some candidates, but the back two are the where they've got to really find the last 2 guys.
And they do have some candidates from the Rule 5 draft. We'll talk about that later. But let's go back to John Jay. And you mentioned about the leadership. He comes from a winning organization with the St. Louis Cardinals. I think you need that with this team right now that has had 5 straight losing seasons. He's a career .287 hitter, on-base percentage .354, and his defense, he had a streak where he had 245 games without an error. So I really think this is an underrated move, getting him for Jed Jerko.
Well, I like the move for a couple different reasons. One, the leadership. 2, even when he struggled with the bat, like he did last year, he didn't hit for high average, that on-base percentage remained very high. I think he might be a guy that you can play in center, you can play him in left. You hits at the top of the order. I think he's going to be a very important element in this team.
Another important element has to be Will Myers.
Right. He's
a guy, 2013 Rookie of the Year, but since then he's hit .244. Injured last year for a couple months. How important of a year is this for him?
Well, a couple things. One, he's almost a year away from the wrist surgery. So I got to think that that's healed up. If he stays healthy at first base, where he wants to play, he'd rather be there than in the outfield. I think Will Myers gives you an upgrade at first base and also gives you a chance, John Jay in left, and then or rookie Hunter Renfroe if he's ready. And then that could move Jay to center. I think he opens up a couple other possibilities.
You look at the NL West right now, and I don't think any division in baseball had more turnover than the NL West.
Or more improvement.
Exactly. But you're looking at, Andy comes over from Arizona. Dave Roberts, who is here as a bench coach, goes to Los Angeles. You have Mark McGwire coming back here. You have Zach Greinke going to Arizona. He's joined by Shelby Miller from the Braves, gives them a good 1-2 combination. Obviously, with the Giants adding Johnny Cueto and Jeff Samardzija to Madison Bumgarner, that's going to be huge. But where do you see the Padres right now in terms of, this division and getting off to a good start?
Well, good start is a huge question because the Padres have been plagued until last year by some bad starts. I see this as being a very competitive team. I really like Tyson Ross at the top of my rotation. I think he is emerging as a number 1. And then you've got Shields, and then you've got Cashner, who I think will bounce back from last year.
All right, Bill, stay right there. We're going to take a break right now. Before we do, though, we got to tell you about the spring training tickets. Spring training is just around the corner. Tickets are available now for all Padres 2016 spring training games in Peoria, Arizona. Get your tickets now at padres.com/spring. We'll be back after these messages. And welcome back to Padres Social Hour. Paul Devlin along with Bill Center, and we are joined by Nick Ennis, Director of Baseball Operations and the pride of Georgetown University and Columbia, where he received an MBA. And Bill, I'm feeling a little intellectually inferior right now.
Yeah, well, that would be easy for me.
Well, I also went to Bixby Public High School in Bixby, Oklahoma, so maybe that evens
throws it
out.
off.
Yeah, exactly. We'll play for the tie there. So.
Okay, well, let's start off with that. You started as a venture capitalist, and in that business, if you play it right, you make a lot of money. You retire by 35. You went away from that, got into baseball, where you don't make a lot of money right away. If you had to do it all over again, would you do it?
Yeah, no, I love my job, no question. Having an opportunity to be a part of an organization like this, and with a lot of excitement and young players, and kind of really building towards something. I mean, watching baseball games for a living. I don't think anybody's going to really look back at that and sort of regret it.
No, of course not.
So it was absolutely. I love what I do, and it's exciting to kind of get out of bed every morning and do it. So.
Plus, would you like to be a venture capitalist the last couple of weeks in Wall Street?
I don't think so.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. I definitely played it the wrong way by taking on a lot of student loan debt for grad school and then going into baseball. But I love what I do. So it's
Okay,
great.
so what you do a lot of things right now, and you have your hand in player acquisition, pro scouting. You were an advanced scout for a while. You're into contracts and analytics. With that said, let's talk about the philosophy of the Padres in the Rule 5 draft this season. They picked up 4 guys, which is a lot. I mean, no team has ever carried 4, and then the Detroit Tigers in 2003, they had 3.
Let's not talk about the 2003 Tigers right now.
Let's not. That was more than 100 losses, right?
It's a bad omen, yeah.
So,
exactly.
So tell me about the philosophy and why you went that way.
Yeah, I think the Rule 5 draft, obviously for players, it's a great mechanism because they're guys who, probably have the talent to at least have a shot to stick on a major league roster, but for whatever reason in their particular organization, they're not given the opportunity. So for us, you see players that kind of have major league talent, have a chance to sort of, either make an immediate impact or make an impact down the road. And, the acquisition cost is very low. And, I think we saw an opportunity to be aggressive and kind of bring some talented players into the organization without having to give up, anything really. So.
Okay, so it was an interesting range from 22 to 28 years old in terms and experience as well. You get Luis Perdomo from the St. Louis Cardinals, where he was ranked as the 12th best prospect, but he has never pitched above single A. What did you like about him?
No, I mean, I think, again, these guys, they kind of come with different profiles. They have different sort of reasons why they're attractive to us. Perdomo, I think, is a guy that, long-term you hope is a talented young starting pitching prospect, has shown some things in the past. A lot of times in the Rule 5 draft, these guys become eligible for the Rule 5 draft if they're a Latin-based player at a very young age, and this is the profile that they fit, where maybe they haven't pitched above A ball, but they show you velocity, they show you secondary pitches, and you're placing a bet on talent more than you are on sort of immediate sort of stabilizing kind of performance presence. So with Perdomo, go ahead, Bill.
Speaking about the Latin American player in the Rule 5 draft, do you think the rules should be changed that somebody that you sign at 16, that their time that you've got them actually runs out at 21, and then you got to make this choice? I mean, there have been a lot of Latin players, Rule 5 guys, that have made it with their second team that weren't ready with the first.
No, I think it's obviously we all know what we were like from 16 to 21, and how we developed in different ways, and it's the same for these players. There's a lot of physical development that can occur, and some of these guys spend a lot of time. They spend multiple years in rookie ball or in the Dominican Summer League, and by the time they make it to the States, they might only have a year or two stateside before a team has to make a tough call on whether to protect them, and then in our case, a tough call on whether to sort of give that guy an opportunity, because these guys do need to stick on your roster for the entire year at the major league level, and that's a challenge for anyone.
Do you think the rules should be changed, though, so that the first club to sign them has them for another year or so?
I mean, it's obviously all these things are collectively bargained with the union, and it's a great opportunity for a player. Obviously, Luis Perdomo, when was he going to make it to the major leagues, if he stayed put or if this opportunity wasn't available? It probably 2 to 3 years from now. I think that's So it's a good opportunity for the player. As an organization, you don't want to have a risk of losing talented young players. So I see both sides of it, I guess, Bill. I'm gonna ride the fence on that one. Yeah.
Hey, one of the most intriguing players is Jabari Blash. I mean, he's a guy, he's 6'5", 220, and between AA and AAA with Seattle last year, 32 home runs, and he goes on a rampage. It's 22 during a 56-game stretch. I mean, how does this guy project to you? I mean, everybody pays for a premium on power. We saw that with Justin Upton and Chris Davis, who got $161 million.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously, Jabari Blash is always a guy who's shown some talent. I think that talent turned into a lot of production at the upper levels of the minors. Certainly last year, 32 home runs. What can he be? I mean, I think there have been questions about how much contact he's going to make, if he's going to be able to get to enough of that power against Major League pitching. But, that kind of talent, a guy who can hit 32 home runs,
right.
That's hard to find. And, we're willing to kind of give a player like that the opportunity to sort of see what he can do at the Major League level. And, we're excited about it.
How do you compare Blash to Cody Decker?
Blash to Cody Decker. I mean, I think that's an interesting question. Obviously, Cody, very productive player at the upper levels of the minors. I think from a scouting standpoint, most of the information that you get back on sort of a Cody is, more question marks about his bat speed, more question marks about his physical talent. I think Cody is a guy who's made a lot of his sort of natural gifts and has been a very productive minor league player. And, hopefully, because he's a very likable guy, has a good future in the game still ahead of him. I think with Blash, from a scouting standpoint, people have seen a little bit more physical ability, a little bit more of that. This guy, in addition to being productive, might have kind of the physical tools that you would need to sort of make adjustments at the Major League level and translate those kind of gifts into production.
How about Blake Smith? He was originally drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that's where Logan White was when he was the scouting director, and he probably had a hand in that. He's got a big arm, strikes out more than one an inning. What do you see in him in terms of adding something to this rotation?
Yeah, no, I'll talk about Smith and Josh Martin, the player we got from the Indian system, kind of together. I mean, they're both right-handed relievers who've shown, mid-90s fastball and a plus secondary pitch. Those are guys, when we look at bullpens in the major leagues, like that's what a lot of them look like these days. They've got the velocity, they've got the slider. They get righties and lefties out typically, and both of those guys I think are, when we looked at them from a talent perspective and what they've been doing in their minor league careers to date, we saw, guys with the ability to compete for a role in a major league bullpen, and we'll see how it shakes out when they kind of get into camp, but certainly are not guys from a talent perspective who are out of place on a major league roster, and we liked what we saw, and we decided to give them an opportunity. So.
Nick Ennis, thank you so much for taking time out and talking baseball with us.
No problem, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Jesse Agler comes in and talks a little baseball and where he's going next year. But first, we have a little announcement. For the 10th consecutive year, the San Diego Padres will host a free coaches development training for youth baseball and softball coaches on Sunday, January 31st. The clinic will focus on how to teach and develop young athletes. For more info and to register, visit Padres.com/clinics. And we are back. Padres Social Hour, Paul Devlin along with Bill Center, and the man to the far left needs no introduction, but I got to give it to him anyway. Jesse Agler.
That's not true.
Anyway, you spent the last few years as the host of this show, moving up to the broadcast team. Tell the fans out there what you're going to be doing.
I am going to be on the radio this year a lot with both Ted and at times Don. I think we're going to mix it up a little bit this year. I don't think I'm going to be doing any TV this year as I have the last couple of years. But, we sort of have an abundance of talented broadcasters right now, which is cool. This is a golden era of Padre broadcasting. You've got a Hall of Famer in Dick Enberg. You've got an All-Pro in Don Orsillo, one of the absolute best among the contemporary guys. Leitner, a local legend, and I'm just the guy bringing up the rear.
No, I don't think so.
Compared to those guys?
Right. Compared to those
chicken
guys.
Chicken scratch, chicken feed.
Chicken
I don't know all of the farming terms, but I'm the low guy.
But you got 4 innings a game?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I'm big. I think I'm looking forward to it.
I'm glad Baseball Bill is looking forward to it. That makes
Oh,
me
you
very
just
happy.
had to do that. You just had to do that.
Okay, you're going to be heading to spring training in less than a month.
Yeah.
And it's a little different than last year. Last year, the expectations were sky high. They had guys like Upton, Kemp, and
Yeah.
Myers and Norris coming in. What is the difference around this time of year? Is it just expectations are tempered just a little bit?
Probably for fans they are, right? I think their expectations are going to be a little bit different, and that's not even necessarily from a purely statistical standpoint. I think it's just from a name recognition standpoint. And as you said, Kemp and Upton last year, to similar extent at the time, Norris, Myers, even Middlebrooks. He was lumped into all of this, right?
He
A
was
guy that's been designated for assignment at this point in life. But yeah, I think everybody came into it with like, wow, we're making a run for this thing. And the first 10 days of the regular season, or the 15 days, right? What were they, 10 and 5?
10-5.
You were like, all right, here we go. 2014's in the rearview mirror. This team can pitch. This team can hit now. And then the pitching sort of stumbled, through a good chunk of April, May, and into the beginning of June. And the next thing you knew, it wasn't going the way it was planned. And they kind of made another bit of a little, push later on in the summer. But you're right. At this time last year, I think we were all saying, pinch me. And they had yet to acquire Craig Kimbrell. And at this point, had they signed Shields?
They had not signed Shields.
So think about
right.
that.
Yeah.
At this time last year, there still was no Shields, no Kimbrell. So yeah, going right into spring training, sort of on the heels of that. Kimbrell, obviously, right before the regular season started. I think that was an Easter Sunday deal. You were like, whoa, this is going to be different, and now it is going to be different again. But yeah, for other reasons.
So you got your scoreboard already with the 17 candidates for reliever.
I have my notes.
Right.
I dove in the last couple of weeks. I can show you a picture since this is a fake show. I'm like really diving into
You
it right
got
now.
it. You got all your.
I've got my relievers. I've actually started on the position players, and I'll get into the pitchers. But you're right. It's going to be a race to the finish in the bullpen, right?
Right.
You got Brandon Maurer as a starter now?
I have Brandon Maurer as a starter. I am also very interested in how Brandon Morrow comes out of that surgery
Sure.
because at the start of last year he was
That's
the
one.
most effective starter.
No question.
You've been around the team every day for the last few years. You have your pulse on this team and this organization.
And yet I know nothing. It's
Yes.
incredible,
No,
isn't it?
it is amazing.
It's a skill.
But what kind of sense do you get of the direction they're trying to go in? Is it win now and try to develop the farm system, or try to do both at the same time?
It's funny because, there's so much talk about that around baseball, and the Astros model is like what everybody's talking about now because the Astros tore it down. They lost 103 games a couple of years ago, and then, hey, they were in the playoffs, and they beat the Yankees in the Bronx in a wild card game, and now, the Astros are the greatest thing ever, and A.J. Hinch could be manager of the year. I don't know that you necessarily have to go that far, and I don't think they are. I think this is going to be a relatively competitive team. It's a really tough division, though. Arizona has gotten better. They've got who I consider the best everyday player in the National League, not named Bryce Harper, in Paul Goldschmidt at first base. They signed Zach Greinke. I don't know that he'll be as good as he was last year or the year before. That's a tougher place to pitch. It'll be interesting to see how that all goes. But they're improved. There's no question. The Giants are improved, and this is a team that's won 3 World Series in the last 6 years. The Dodgers are pretty much going to be the Dodgers, although I don't see them winning the division again, but who knows. I think the Rockies and the Padres are both trying to figure out what's going on. Now, all of that said, I see a major league club as two sort of parallel columns. And the first is the big league roster, and the second is the farm system. And sure, there's obviously cross-pollination or whatever, that takes place in there, and sometimes one impacts the other a lot, sometimes not so much. And the bullpen, which Bill just mentioned, trading Benoit, trading Kimbrell, in those deals, they got back guys that they think are legitimately center fielder of the future, shortstop of the future, probably 2017 at the earliest, though. So what are you doing in 2016? You're bringing in an incredibly capable veteran to play shortstop in Alexei Ramirez. You're bringing in guys for the back end of the bullpen who can get it done, whether it's a Vincent or a Quackenbush from here, or whether it's a Fernando Rodney from there. So it's not like they're punting and they're saying, look, we're going to win 55 games this year and look like the 62 Mets of the 03 Tigers. They're saying, hey, we're going to spend some money. We're going to bring in an Alexei Ramirez. We're going to bring in a Fernando Rodney. We're going to see what happens here. And if things aren't going well, August 1st is now the non-waiver trade deadline. That news came out today instead of July 31st. Okay, maybe you got some value there. You get back some more guys. So, yeah, I think that they are rebuilding, but not at the detriment of any kind of successful major league season. I don't think you have to completely tear it down and go, full '03 Tigers or whatever Astros.
And I do think their farm system at crucial positions, shortstop, center field,
as good as it's been in a long time.
is as good as it's been in maybe 5-10 years.
Since this is not a real show and we're not actually on the air, can I just say that the prospects they traded away last offseason to make a lot of these moves, not particularly well regarded
No,
by this front office.
You're right.
And that's an important thing to keep in mind. You know, people say, oh, they burned it down to the ground. No, they got rid of guys that they weren't that impressed by. And now they've sort of spun some of those acquisitions, the Kimbrels and whoever, into prospects they do like.
There's an interesting dynamic in the NOS in terms of managerial experience.
Yeah.
Green
Is Green.
David Roberts,
Yeah.
never managed. He had
Right.
one game here last year, lost 9-1. Chip Hale, 1 year.
It's against the A's, right?
Yeah. Walt Weiss, 2 years. And then you have Bruce Bochy, who was here for 12 years and is entering his 21st season in the NL West. How much of an advantage do you think that's going to be?
For the Giants?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. I hadn't really thought of it in those terms. It can't hurt. He's as well regarded a guy as there is. I think, again, fake show. I watched a lot of Don Mattingly the last couple of years. I was incredibly unimpressed with the way he handled the ball game, and I've told that to my friends in Miami. So the Dodgers, I think, is addition by subtraction, and I think very highly of Dave Roberts. I'm looking forward to seeing how he kind of handles that situation. He will have that clubhouse so good. I don't know about the in-game stuff, we'll see. But the clubhouse, and that was a big issue for the Dodgers, is going to be so dead on. He is an incredible people person. He is an incredible personality. At the winter meetings this year in Nashville, all the managers do like a press conference, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to go watch Doc's press conference, which was probably the most well-attended. They got these guys in little chairs like the size of that, and it's just 30 cameras crowded around. It's the LA market. It's the new manager. He was a relatively recent hire, so it was just a media crush there. So I'm kind of on the outside, and I'm craning my neck to just listen, and I'm curious what he has to say about the whole situation. We kind of made eye contact a couple of times while he's talking. He's looking around the group. And after it finishes, every reporter's coming up to him. Bill, you know how you guys are. Everybody wants their own little, exclusive comment from Dave Roberts that wasn't part of it. So he kind of finishes with that. And, his PR people are hustling him to the next stop, whatever it is. And he sees me and he stops and he comes over and he kind of gives me like the handshake hug thing. He's like, thank you so much for coming to this. And I was like, no, man, I just wanted to congratulate you. I haven't seen you since you got the job. He's like, no, really, it meant so much to me that you were here. And I'm thinking to myself, why does it matter to you that I'm like, we know each other from the last couple of seasons here, but that's the kind of person he is. Like, you just feel loved from this guy. And that clubhouse, which has had as many issues as it has the last couple of years, boy, he's going to have that thing going in the right direction.
All right, you're going in the right direction, going up to the broadcast booth, 4 innings every game.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Paul, my pleasure.
You going to Billy Joel?
We'll see if I'm in town or not. I got to get my schedule first.
I'll tell you if
I
he
believe
is.
the team is at Wrigley.
Okay, as we go to break, Billy Joel returns to San Diego for the first time in 15 years, performing at Petco Park on Saturday, May 14th. This will be his only show in California this year and his first time playing at Petco Park. Tickets go on sale on Friday, January 22nd at Padres.com/Billy Joel. We'll be back after this. Live at Petco Park, Paul Devlin along with Bill Center. And Bill, I want to talk about some of the players that the Padres acquired in the offseason. Shortstop has been a black hole for this team since 2009. They've used 18 different players at the position. They signed Alexi Ramirez, 1 year, short money, $4 million. Do you like this acquisition?
I do like it, and I do like the fact that it doesn't eat up a lot of time, because I think they have 3 good shortstops in the system, 2 that really stand out, Guerra and Jose Rondon. And I think that they just need somebody for this 1 year to come in and not only play short, but take charge of the infield. And I think Alexi Ramirez has the experience, has the background to do that. Short was a black hole last year.
What I like about Ramirez, besides the 273 career average, he is very durable.
Right.
The last 7 years, he's averaged over 150 games a year. That is very impressive. And he comes from a place where, it's a big market. There's a lot of pressure. And I really think that could help this team all the way around.
And he's a little bit of a personality. He's a showman. And I think that personality is going to help this team. That give it a little flair, they had talent last year, but they really didn't have a flair. And I think that he's going to pick up the level of play. I think John Jay is going to do the same thing.
Yeah, I really like that acquisition. And we talked about Jabari Blash. And we know that in terms of Major League Baseball, there is a premium on power hitting. We
Right.
saw that with Justin Upton. He gets $132 million. Chris Davis, $161 million. But the Padres, that was too rich for them, obviously. But getting a guy like Blash, could be key. Do you think that he really has a chance to make
Well,
this team?
Yes, because they're right now, if he's not starting, they really don't have a fourth outfielder, a power bat on the bench. So I think, yes, he could fill that role. This is his, let's be honest, this is his one opportunity.
Of course.
If this doesn't work out for him, he's pretty much a 4A player so this is his opportunity, and I think there is a need for a player like that on the Padres.
Exactly, and he is a high strikeout guy, and he's going up to that next level where they'll find those holes rather quickly. And if he doesn't adjust, then it could be a short stay for him. How about Mark McGwire coming here as a bench coach, and what do you think that would do in terms of the clubhouse and the personality of the team?
Well, this is one thing. You're certainly going to listen to Mark McGwire for no other reason that, one, he's got background and he has a physical presence, which to me, major league ball players look to what your background is in the major leagues,
Right.
and the physical presence. The other thing is, I think that he's going to fill two roles. One, he's going to be the bench coach, but he also gives them a second hitting coach, somebody who has hit in the major leagues, knows a lot of things. His career, he started out sort of as a free swinger, and his career went on. He sort of crossed paths and became a very take some pitches, take some walks. I think all around he's going to be a good addition.
Obviously, the steroid cloud follows him around.
Right.
That's from the national and with the fans. But the major league players, they don't care about that.
No.
Because they know what he's done and what he has accomplished and the adversity that he has overcome.
And in Los Angeles, where you would have thought that could really be a big question, he handled it well, and it sort of faded away as a question. I don't see it being a problem as a coach.
Going into spring training, who do you see coming out as the biggest surprise for this team?
I don't know if it's going to work out, but I could see Hunter Renfroe being the biggest surprise this spring. Had a great short run in AAA after a mediocre year in AA in a pitcher's ballpark. Has great potential, great power. He's going to be a high strikeout guy, but he's going to hit home runs and drive in runs. And if he had a great spring, I could see him sticking, but it would have to be an absolutely phenomenal spring.
Do you see Manuel Margot, one of the players that the Padres got in the trade for Craig Kimball, coming over from the Red Sox, really having an impact, maybe in the second half of 2016? He's a guy who made it to AA at 20.
Right.
Great athlete. And if you've seen video of this guy, he loves to take a hack.
Right. Very aggressive hitter. Very aggressive hitter. I could see him towards the end of this year. I certainly think they want to look at him and Javier Guerra as soon as possible, which is why Alexi's got a one-year deal. I can see those two guys being regulars in the future. I think Margot by the end of this year, probably Javier 1 year away. So, and Renfroe, you want him as a power hitter too. So I think that your outfield of the future might be Renfroe, Margot, and if Jay stays or Kemp stays. So I think they're set.
Yeah, and how about Javier? I mean, he's a small guy. He's 5'11", about 160 pounds, but he's
got punch.
He hit 15 home runs last season.
And the projections for him are for even more power as his body fills out.
Right, and he's a left-handed hitter, which is key because the Padres don't have a lot of lefties on the major league roster or in the minor leagues.
And capable of sensational plays at short.
Right.
Which is, when you look at the highlight films of him playing short, it is incredibly impressive.
Right. How about in terms of, the fans see these guys and attendance? The New York Mets used to do this. They used to overhype their players all the time, whether it was to up their trade value or whatever. But I'm sure the fans, especially if they get off to a bad start, they might clamor to see these guys and want these guys. How does the front office deal with that and make sure they don't rush these guys to ruin them?
I think very, very early on, the front office has to say, we love Margot, but he needs more seasoning. And then you might even set, hey, if he plays well, we're going to see him by September. My guess is Javier starts the season in AA, And if he progresses to AAA, then he might be ready for the start. But they're not going to rush these two. I mean, these are two gems.
How about Darren Balsley? Obviously a well-respected pitching coach.
Right.
But last year was not very good. This year, they didn't add any big starters. How much pressure is on him?
I think that Balsley's track record is such that he doesn't. There's not a lot of pressure from the organization. They know what he can do. There were a lot of extenuating circumstances last year in
Right.
the pitching staff. I think Balsley's a quality pitching coach. Look what he did with bringing Tyson Ross along, and I think that you're going to see a better staff this year.
All right, Bill, thanks a lot. We have one more segment. As we go to break, I want to tell you about the Padres single-game tickets. Padres single-game tickets go on sale on February 11th. Be the first to get tickets to the season's most anticipated games, including matchups against the Dodgers, Giants, Red Sox, and Yankees. Tickets available at Padres.com. And we are live, local, and late breaking. Paul Devlin along with Bill Center, and we're going to take some questions from Twitter. Fire in your questions at hashtag Padres Social Hour, capital S, capital H. And the first question we have is from Father Test 84. Do you think the pitchers will feel a higher level of comfort with the second year as a staff under Balsley?
Oh, I think Shields will, for sure. Tyson's been with Balsley for 3 years now. So, and Balsley was crucial in developing Tyson Ross from a hit-and-miss starter in Oakland to a really solid starter here with the Padres. I think that the pitchers like working with Balsley. That's been shown over the years. And you've got Trevor Hoffman, who worked with Balsley for so many years. I think that he's got their trust.
Tyson Ross probably going to come to spring training with a little extra bounce in his step. I'm not sure if you read the article about him having great exit velocity.
Right.
93.5, and he was ahead of Paul Goldschmidt, Yoenis Cespedes, and some pretty good hitters right there. So I think he's going to go in there a little cocky when he walks into spring training.
I've seen Tyson hit a baseball. I mean, he swings it very, very hard. In fact, 3 years ago, and he ran into a problem in Los Angeles, hit a double to right center, and as his follow-through, his right arm popped out of its socket. He has actually toned it down over the last couple of years because he doesn't want to repeat that. But he is a very aggressive hitter, and he can drive the ball. Got, that 6'5" height, long arms. He can drive the ball.
That's pretty good. We have another question from Blooper Test, and he asked, any opinions on Fernando Rodney out there? And I'll start with this. I think it's a good move because it doesn't come at a lot of cost. He's a guy that probably still has some life in his arm. We talked about him being 39 years old in March, but, we saw Trevor Hoffman pitch till he was 42. So I really think he's going to give this team some personality, some style, some flair, and hopefully some saves.
The interesting thing about Rodney to me is that his numbers have always been better with the more he's used. So as a closer, you're hoping to use him a lot, and if you do, history says his numbers are going to be good.
Okay, Ed says, what about the prospects? Any chance any of these guys have an impact this season?
I would love to think that Hunter Renfroe could make the club out of spring training. Now that might be pulling at straws, but if he had a great spring, I think that would really answer a couple questions. I think Corey Spangenberg, this is the year where you're going to see a lot of development at second base. And I think if Hedges is not on the major league roster at the start of the season, one more year of seasoning at AAA, he is a quality major league catcher defensively and handling pitchers. Those are the three guys I'm watching.
All right, we talked about this earlier, and Friar Blue SD asks, which prospects might have the biggest impact this season?
Which prospect? I really think that in terms of prospect, I still view Corey Spangenberg as a prospect at second base, and I think he's going to be a lot better this year, given a chance to play every day. This will be the first time where he really goes into spring training with a chance to be an everyday player.
Okay, the ghost of Ray Kroc asked, yeah, Ghost of Ray Kroc, what kind of impact do you think Andy Green will have in his first season?
Tremendous. I think that Andy Green is going to turn around the atmosphere on this club, and I think, like we talked before, I think he's got a great ally and a great aide in John Jay. I think McGuire figures into that too. I think that we're going to see a lot different ball club in terms of just the way it approaches the game.
How does he talk to a guy like Matt Kemp, who's making $20 million a year and is an established major league player, and he has to discipline him?
Well, there's not so much discipline that
Right.
goes on anymore in baseball. You depend on the player to discipline himself, and if he doesn't, then you talk to him a little bit about what he's doing. But he's got a great aide there now in Mark McGuire, who can actually go to a player and say,
Right.
"Look, I did it this way. I was a pro. This is the way you do it."
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Andy Green. I think he's going to add a little spark, to that team on
I
the
think
field.
he's going to add an awful lot of attitude.
And he's going to stand up for his players,
Right.
which is key.
Right.
Okay.
You got to be a player's manager these days.
Right, no question about it. Okay, we're going to take a break. Thanks for the Twitter questions. We'll have more from Petco Park after these messages. And we are back. Bill, going to put you on the spot. How did the Padres finish the season?
I could see them finishing anywhere from 78 to 84 or 5 wins.
All-Star game here for the first time since 1992, first at Petco Park. Who throws out the first pitch?
That's an interesting question. My natural thing would be Randy Jones, but I'm thinking they've got a Hall of Famer in Dave Winfield who played here. He might throw out the first pitch.
Jones, 40 years ago, All-Star game, 1976. He pitched against Mark Fidrich.
Right.
And the interesting about that, Jones had 25 complete games that year, Fidrich 24, and both eventually, had to give it up because of arm problems.
Randy Jones' sinker was one of the most devastating pitches I've ever seen.
Unbelievable. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Our next show is January 29th with Jesse Agler and Randy Jones. Bill, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.